When I decided to move to Lisbon, I thought I had a general idea of what it would cost. Spoiler, I didn't. Between the visa, deposits, and figuring out how to even acquire certain documentation, things added up fast. So here's what moving abroad actually cost me. Not just in theory, but in real numbers. So I've been recording for the past couple minutes and just realized that it was on slow-mo. So starting all over again. But my drink is here. It's a virgin mojito, but it's very elaborate. I wasn't expecting all of this bells and whistles. I will start by saying that the costs and essentially everything I'm going to share in this video is based on 2022 to 2023. My experience between 2022 and 2023, things have obviously changed significantly today. And these costs will not be a reflection of if you were trying to move here today, but this was my experience. So if you haven't already watched my earlier video on sort of the things I needed to move here and how it all happened, I would recommend you watch that, because I will just jump into it assuming that you know what's on the list. Okay, there was a plane going by, so I made a quick pause there. So let's jump right in. So the first thing on my list was the savings amount. Again, this is not something that I sent to someone, but you had to have a certain amount of savings in a Portuguese bank account. And at the time, my lawyer, the minimum was 8,500 euros, but my lawyer recommended 10,000 just to be above the minimum to improve your chances of getting the visa to be able to move. You know, it's a cost, but it's not like a cost that I didn't have to give this money to anyone, but I had to put it in a Portuguese bank account at a time where I had no guarantee that I was going to be able to move. And so had I not gotten the visa, for instance, I guess I would have just wired it back to myself, but then I guess you lose the fees of making the transfer. So that's number one. Number two is the police report. So if you saw my earlier video, I had to end up getting 2 police reports, one from the US because I lived there for a while, and then one from Ghana, which is where I'm from. The police report that I got from the US was technically free. I got it from my university, so I didn't have to pay anything for it. But the Portuguese embassy would not take a photocopy or a scanned document. They wanted the original report. And so I had to pay DHL to ship the documents to me in Ghana, and that cost me $180. The second police report, which is what I got from Ghana, I think that should also technically be free, but it's Ghana, and if you're watching this and you're from Ghana or from West Africa in general, you may know that, or maybe even the global south in general, you may know that things may sometimes not work as they should. And so if you want to get things done or move things along, in Ghana in particular, it often means that you may have to pay something. In my case, I remember going to the police station and making the request. And yes, it's supposed to be free. And making the request, and the police woman basically told me that she's not going to do it for free. So, here's her suggested donation amounts, and I needed it, so I paid. It was definitely under 1,000 cedis, so it was a couple hundreds of cedis, maybe 300 or 400 cedis. So definitely about that in dollars is probably, at the time, probably like $25, $30, something like this. So that's cost number 2. Cost number 3, so again, in my other video, like I said, you had to set up a Portuguese bank account and have a Portuguese finance number. Technically, you should be able to do this by yourself if you were physically in Portugal, but I wasn't. And because I have a Ghanaian passport, in order to physically get to Portugal, I need a visa anyways. And so that was not an option for me. And so I found this company online that had started doing these things virtually because at this time there were a lot of, not just me, there were a lot of Americans, Canadians, people from other places that were trying to move to Portugal. And so they had created this business where they would set up the bank account for you and help you get the finance number, and then you pay them a fee. In my case, I paid $350 for setting up the bank account and 80 euros because I used two different companies. I paid 80 euros to get the NIF, and then I paid $350 to set up the bank account. I will try and track these in text as well so that we can add it all up. We would say that those are costs 1 to 5. So the savings, the police reports, in my case, setting up the bank, the finance number, the NIF. The fifth one is the apartment. So you needed an apartment lease. So basically you had to have an apartment that you were paying for. I shared the story of how I landed my apartment. So feel free again to watch my last posted video. But I essentially had to pay rent while I was waiting for the visa. And because it took me 9 months to get the visa, I was paying rent for 9 months in an apartment that I had not seen, that I was not living in Lisbon. So this apartment was very unique and very much a steal. It's about 50 square meters, a mezzanine, 1 bedroom. So the bedroom is upstairs, living room and kitchen, bathroom downstairs. And I got it at the time for 670 euros. So you can multiply that by 9 for the 9 months that I was waiting. But also I had to, because I took over the lease, I had to, as part of my deposit, put down last month's rent, like two months rent on top of that. So that's 9 months plus 2 additional months as the deposit. At the same time, however, I was also paying my rent in Dakar because I hadn't gotten this visa, and so I didn't know that I was going to be able to move. So I still had my apartment in Dakar. My apartment in Dakar was pretty cheap though. I want to say it was around the equivalent of, at the time, it was the equivalent of $400 a month. So I was paying both of these over the span of 9 months. But in this 9-month waiting period, I had to be in Ghana because I had to apply from Ghana. And once I applied, they took my passport, and so I couldn't get back to Dakar. And the next one was I decided to work with a lawyer because I had done some research and I knew that some people were having issues or going back and forth with the documents. It just seemed more secure to work with a lawyer who could review it before I applied. And so I worked with a lawyer who just reviewed the documents and confirmed before I submitted. And I paid 400 euros for that, which, especially if you're from North America, this might sound pretty cheap because lawyers cost maybe this amount for 30 minutes of their time. And reviewing documents her reviewing my documents probably took more than an hour or 2 of her time, because there were some where she had to come back and say, this should work, but it won't because of where you're from, yada, yada, yada. So that's cost number 6. Number 7 was, as part of the list of things that I had to get to apply, I needed some international health insurance. I got this from Ghana. This was pretty straightforward. It cost me 80 euros, the equivalent of 80 euros. And then the 8th thing on the list. So the police report that I mentioned to show that you have no criminal background. Because I'm from Ghana, if you're from the US or Canada, whatever that report looks like is a standardized form that people from other places recognize. It's not the same when you're from Ghana. And so, even though I had the police report, my lawyer advised me to get it notarized or validated essentially. So, I had to go to the Supreme Court in Ghana to have that done because there was just no way for them to know that this police report from nobody knows what the police report from Ghana is supposed to look like. And this was another thing that should be free or cost nothing, but it's Ghana. Had to do a bit of back and forth, get it within a certain time frame, and so that ended up costing me about 2,000 cedis at the time, which is less estimated to be $170 at the time. So the last cost is technically another lawyer fee, which was no more than 300 euros in total. But I'll tell you about this because this was a different lawyer that I ended up having to hire because my documents, like I said, they held my passport for about 9 months. And so by the 7th month, I was getting a bit concerned. And so I tried to get another lawyer. And this lawyer came to me also sort of what felt like divine timing and leads me to another very short story time. So I'm in Ghana. It's like month 6. I'm still waiting for my passport. Like, if they were not going to give me the visa, I just wanted to get my passport back at this point. And I got randomly invited to this event. It was like a lunch on a farm just outside of Accra. Very on brand for me, so I was very happy to go. Also, I know the chef, and she was working with the farm owners and a few other people to organize it. But I didn't know anyone else attending, and obviously I know the chef, but she's going to be working. So I did some digging and found a girl who I went to high school with was also going to be there. So I was like, okay, at least there's going to be someone. I'm not going to be by myself. But of course, I get to this event and this girl is extremely late. And so I'm there for a good 40 minutes by myself. And I start speaking to this group of 3 guys, one of whom I become pretty good friends with later on. You know, we all exchange numbers after the event, And this guy, I didn't tell him until much later that I was in the middle of trying to move to Portugal. And then he says to me, oh, I know someone who lives in Portugal. He's Ghanaian American. So he must have gone through a very different process from you, but he lives there. So maybe he might have a good lawyer contact. And so he connects me with this person that he knows, Ghanaian American, who lives in Portugal, who then connects me with this lawyer. Very roundabout situation, I know. But this lawyer is basically the one that does the final push for me to get my passport back with the visa in it. She basically was like threatening them, saying that you can't hold someone's passport this long, yada, yada, yada. And within a few weeks after I got in contact with her, I had my passport with the visa back. I wanted to share that because in the waiting period, I was essentially there was nothing I could do, right? But rather than wallow in my sorrow, I was essentially just doing things that brought me joy. And this invitation to this lunch on a farm, I mean, some of you don't know me, but those who know me know that is so on brand for me, was something that got me excited. And so I was like, anything that is fun, that gets me excited, that brings me joy, I'll do. Even if it means I have to do it by myself, I don't mind. But it's accepting this invitation that led to me meeting this person at the lunch, who introduces me to someone who is now one of my really good friends and mentor, who connected me to the lawyer, who did the final push for me to get my passport back with a visa in it. And so I just wanted to highlight that as part of this idea of the importance of following your intuition and following your joys. It's not to say to do it recklessly, but I found that oftentimes when I'm in touch with that thing, my intuition, my gut, whatever you want to call it, it's led me unexpectedly to the right place without me having to put in any more effort. Because on the flip side, I could have gone on Google and tried to find a different lawyer myself and try and fight this thing, but that would have just caused me more stress. Versus this amazing lawyer sort of just fell in my lap. And because I got connected to her through someone she knows and has a good relationship with, I barely paid much for what she had to do, at the end of things for me. Okay, so this brings our total cost in terms of, and not just money that I lost, but money that I had to have in order to move here, to this number. Curious what you guys think, whether it's a high number, low number, or for me, it was worth every penny. Okay, so I am now off to meet my friend who is setting up a Pilates studio, and then I will pick some stuff up for my neighbor before I head home. I love the street so much.